Thanks so much for tuning into this earnings interaction with Hindalco and Mr. Satish Pai Johnson to talk about what turned out to be a rather splendid quarter. I read their investor presentation, and across metrics, they are at all-time highs. And even if you do a comparative analysis of what they've done, upstream EBITDA or otherwise, the increases have been pretty splendid. The questions to him, though, is how sustainable is a scenario or a performance like this? Mr. Pai, great having you. Hope all is well.
Yes, fine. Thank you, Neeraj.
Well, evidently, after such a quarter, all would be well. But but let's just talk about this. I remember your conversation last quarter with my colleague, wherein you had mentioned that Novelis, after a slightly patchy Q4, will come back strongly. India business will look okay. I think a combination of both of those have ensured these numbers. What has stood out for you in particular?
No, I think that as you mentioned and you remembered quite rightly, I was very happy to see the bounce back of Novelis in Q1. They came back probably a bit stronger than I expected at the $580 per ton EBITDA. So that was very nice, expected, but nice to see the level at which they came back. The other very good thing that makes me happy is the copper business. So the copper business also in Q1 had a very strong quarter. 560 crores of EBITDA. So they had, good operational performance, some tailwinds from sulfur prices and precious metals. So the copper business was also very strong, and the aluminium business, both upstream and the downstream business, which for the first time we have split out, as you can see, both performed quite well, even though they had the headwinds of some coal prices and input prices, which are probably going to affect us more in Q2 now.
Okay. Yeah, so I was about to ask you that. I remember the other thing that I remember is that you had mentioned that there was a serious issue for the India business, arguably for the world business as well, on coal, both availability as well as pricing. Now, I reckon that back then, higher realizations had taken care of the higher input costs. How has the situation been in Q1, both on the availability and the pricing, vis-a-vis the realizations, and how do you expect this picture to shape up in the quarters to come?
So Neeraj, what happened in Q1 is that the aluminium prices in the first months of the quarter, like April and actually May, were still quite high. And they actually sharply corrected down sort of in May, June to the current $2,400 per ton levels. So I think that you will see that from Q4 to Q1, the aluminium margins have come down. They were at about 43%, they're at 38%. So I think that now at the $2,400 per ton EBITDA, and with the current prices of coal, Q2 the margins are going to quite dramatically come down in the upstream business. Now, to give you a picture, I think the worst probably is over from a coal pricing and availability point of view. Once the monsoons came in, we have already started to see in the month of August coal supplies and e-auction premiums starting to ease. So we are hopeful that Q2 will be probably the worst from an upstream aluminium point of view, and we should then start to see in Q3 and Q4 steadily again prices coming back under control.
Yeah. So the other piece is, Mr. Pai, and I really wanted to understand, the world will probably remain deficit even in FY23 or 2022, as the case may be. Do you reckon that situation could change a little bit depending on the demand supplies? Well, not a question, but depending on the demand scenario, as you see it unfold, what are client conversations telling you? And what is your view about this cycle vis-a-vis the many others that you would have seen?
So look, this cycle, the one thing that is interesting is people are talking about a recession and its impacts, whereas business is yet to see a lot of those impacts. For example, for our business in Q1, whether it's in Novelis or anything, we have not seen any dramatic demand impact yet. So people keep talking about it, people are worried, people are saying that it will come, but right now we have not seen a big impact on demand yet. Now, the commodity prices, because of this macroeconomic fear of recession, high interest prices, Chinese slowdown, all the commodity prices, whether it's oil, whether it's steel, whether it's aluminium, copper, all have corrected down. But if you go one level below and look at the fundamentals, the inventories and all are pretty tight. Aluminium inventories are at 15-year lows. So if your demand actually does not go down, and in fact the economy slightly picks up, you're going to see a very tight supply and demand from an aluminium point of view, is all I can say.
Okay. I'm not trying to counter that. You are well learned on this, but I'm just trying to understand. So the pieces that most people do, and I've written it down, the three key elements needed for commodity prices to stay stable or higher: benign USD, strong China, rising global GDP. We have none of these currently. Do you expect this to change in the quarters to come?
No, I think that, if you take a look at all that, a Chinese economy, a lower US dollar, a stronger US dollar, not lower, stronger US dollar, and let's say a recession in the Western world. I think that, in many ways, as the financial market guys like to, the worst of what can happen has already been factored into everyone's calculations. So now your question is it going to get worse than what they have already factored in? And that, we'll have to wait and see. But I think China is starting to come out. We have businesses in China. The auto demand where we supply, there is absolutely no shortage of demand for our auto sheet. So I think that the worst, probably from a China point of view, is over, and their economy will start to pick up. The US dollar had strengthened, but everyone else has started to raise interest rates. So you can see that the currencies, whether it's the rupee, euro to the dollar is sort of, coming back off its highs. So I personally don't know, and it will be just a speculation, but I think that the worst is probably all factored in.
Interesting. Are client conversations suggesting anything otherwise, Mr. Pai?
No, I mean, see the sectors we play in, like aluminium can. Normally, in any recession that we have seen in the last few years, especially the first year of COVID, the can demand did not go down as much. And if you look at auto, which is another big sector for us, the pent-up demand for auto is huge. I mean, most people in the US or even in India, I'm told, have got 6 months to 1 year waiting list to get a car. So the high-end cars where aluminium goes, even if there's a few quarters of recession, the pent-up demand will see us through that. So in the sectors we are playing, the building and construction, that probably is the one where we'll see some impact, because as interest rates start, housing starts go down, housing people, taking out housing loans, they may get affected. So I'm quite sure that some sectors are going to get affected, but our business is very well diversified. So can, auto, aerospace has come back. People are flying like there's no tomorrow. So yes, one sector may get affected, but the other three are doing quite well.
Actually, so last couple of questions, Mr. Pai, before I let you go. One is, since, I wanted to say that question for last, but since you brought it up, there is a very high belief that while there might be a small blip, but the Indian real estate cycle is well and truly underway, and the uptick will last for multiple years. Now, to your mind, would that be the case? Because that's a big, how do I say, a bit of a base effect that comes in for all things commodities over a slightly sustained period. What's your sense there?
So look, first I have to tell you that the building and construction sector for Hindalco and aluminium is sizable, but not that big.
Yes.
For us, the electrical sector is very big. The packaging sector is very big. So the building and construction is what I call a growing market for us, as people start to use more aluminium, composite sheets, doors, windows. And in those sectors, right now in Q1 and all, we have not seen any pullback in demand yet. In fact, the demand in the BNC sector is quite strong.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. More in a detailed conversation later on. My final question to you, CAPEX guidance. Are you, I presume Novelis was at the lower end of the announced one. Can I get some insights from you here? I know you've mentioned in the past that you are struggling to supply, but I'm still trying to understand, because of the environment, are you revising it? Could you revise it going ahead? Any thoughts here?
So, very good question. So I want to emphatically say that we are not going to pull back from any of our organic growth CAPEX plans. So when Novelis said at the lower end, it's because because of the tightness in supply from many of our suppliers, our ability to execute is actually a little bit slower now. Most of the big equipment suppliers are fully booked up. So that's why we are not able to move the CAPEX as fast as we want. So, but in brief, I wanted to tell you that all our CAPEX plans, which is based around organic growth for Novelis and Hindalco, we are not cutting any CAPEX plans, and we intend to go through with the projects. But the reality is the spend will be a little bit slower because of our ability to actually execute.
Got it. Great. Mr. Pai, first time that I'm talking to you, but lovely talking to you, and look forward to many conversations. Thank you for talking to us today, and congratulations on what was arguably a really good quarter.
Thank you, Neeraj. Look forward to the next one.
Thank you so much. And viewers, thanks for tuning in.